The people who tell you they're not interested, what they're saying is, we are not interested now. It's not, we are not interested forever. I think particularly in the SME space, there are a lot of business owners who are excellent at the craft. A lot of these things, they don't actually do that all the time, or they don't even do that at all.
Welcome to Where Are My Customers? Brought to you by AeroChat and produced by Stridex.
Hey, Nicholas, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Ava, thanks for having me. Great to be
No
here.
worries, man. Hey, but before I start, right, do people actually call you Nick or Nicholas?
Nick, both is fine, but a lot of people call me Nick, so it's much easier for everyone.
Because when I saw the name on the WhatsApp, right, it's always Nick. I'm like, okay, sure. Yeah, great to have talk to you. And in fact, I think, as I recall, it's probably a good close to 10 years since we last connected. If not for the the Active Campaign event, we probably wouldn't have connected face to face, right?
No, I think we did maybe a few years after I left HubSpot. I think there was one event that you were running. You were at some event doing some exhibition. I popped by, visit you, have a bit of a chat. That was probably 2-3 years.
No, but that was just like a quick visit. Right. It wasn't like a more in-depth getting to know. But yeah, then it's good to be able to finally catch up. And I felt that's kind of interesting that, after so many years, you're still in this space. And maybe, that's actually what I wanted to talk to you about, because it's actually something kind of interesting to me. So maybe for the for the audience who might not know you, maybe you can just do a quick introduction of yourself and share, what have you been doing all this while?
Sure. So just a bit of a background. I think in my last corporate job before I left, before I came out and do my own, run my own business, I was at HubSpot in Singapore. So, so very much in the CRM marketing automation space. I think that's when we met as well.
Yes.
So I was there for maybe about a year and a half. And then after I left, I started my own consultancy, Funnel Cycle, which basically for the first maybe 4 or 5 years, this will be around 2017. For the first 4 or 5 years, really focus on CRM, marketing automation, kind of set up mostly for SME business owners here in Singapore. Then at that point, I was doing for many different kind of businesses, to be honest. So you'll be, B2B, B2C, e-commerce. Over the last maybe since 2-3 years, been more focused on working with mostly B2B clients, in fact. In the clients in the B2B services space specifically. So like, marketing agencies, consultancies, IT service providers, and also working with them, not just on the CRM consulting, marketing automation, which I was doing a lot in the past, but also helping them with things like their building out their, outbound lead gen process, business development process as well. So kind of at this point in time, probably 50-50 in terms of the business, 50% of the CRM kind of stuff and 50% of the lead gen, outbound, business development, sales consulting for B2B.
Okay. So, and I'm probably also guilty of this sometimes myself when we hear things like, outbound or lead gen or marketing automation, right? Then a lot of us, again, like I said, including myself, sometimes are like, so it's email marketing, right? So when people say, hey, so does that mean that, Nick, so basically what you do is email marketing, right? Is it yes, no, or how do you explain further, like what's the depth of it?
Right. I think email marketing is obviously a very critical core part of that. And I think a lot of people, when you say email marketing, they use terms like email blast, ED ad, MailChimp. Right? These are the kind of associated terms a lot of people would have. And they're not kind of wrong. Like this, for a long time, I think in terms of like technology stack, you probably have things like CRM earlier, like I don't know, in the 80s, there was come out and do this stuff, right? 80s, they started to use this term. There's some rudimentary, systems doing something like the CRM kind of stuff. So beyond a spreadsheet, basically. Then obviously, you have models like the SaaS-based models like Salesforce, and these guys come out, and then later more and more. And I think for a long time, people associate email marketing with all this kind of work. So obviously, no. Generally, no. In fact, I will probably say this depending on the nature of business. So of course, if you're e-commerce, email marketing is such a core part of what you do because your audience is largely consumers, right? And And email, everybody has seen before the Amazon emails, introducing different products, what you bought, and this is what they recommend. So that's really critical for, I think, for particular B2C space, because your contact database is probably huge, right? So you can't be selling one-to-one. But for different kind of businesses, maybe if you move to say somebody like B2B, maybe you don't even have more than 50 contacts in your database. How critical email marketing going to be for somebody like that? Probably less critical than the other elements of whatever else we're doing, having the right database, having a sales pipeline and stuff like that. So I probably say the answer that is depends on the nature of your business, how important email marketing will be. It can be very important, or it can be not quite as critical versus some other businesses.
Okay, so based on what you just said, right, it sounds like that some of your recent B2B customers that you're working with tends to be more on the large ticket items, which, then wouldn't be a one-to-many or mass marketing kind of format. So in a way, it feels more like relationship building process rather than lead gen or outbound. Is there a difference to that, or how do you align with?
Maybe I think yes, partially. I think that's just simply the nature of my work, which is more B2B services. Of course, you are selling a B2B product. I don't know, maybe a subscription software product. Maybe the value, the dollar value is maybe not as high than a service-based business. Then of course, that those elements will change things. So the way I'll think about it is that there's that relationship-based kind of element to a lot of this business development work, right? But I think particularly I probably speak from the viewpoint of the kind of clients I tend to work with, like marketing agencies, consultancies. So generally more high ticket in terms of a single deal. But and I think the perception in the past would have often been that it's very relationship based. You get referrals, you network with people, people who know, or your existing clients or ex-clients refer you to somebody that they know. And I'll tell you this is the best kind of leads, right? For any of us who have done service-based work, this is always the golden opportunity. People who have worked with you and refer you. But I think working with a lot of B2B service owners, agency owners, I think that the reality is that it's not unusual that you hear this, is that we have traditionally relied on referrals and our network for leads, for opportunity deals. But at some point, that kind of slow down or even run dry. And that can be due to many different factors. Sometimes it's a matter of your business has grown. So whatever used to keep you, your pipeline filled, no longer be able to do that. But sometimes there's also different elements. I have a client who they do really excellent work in their space. I wouldn't say specifically what, but the business owner has grown older over time. And a lot of his peers who used to, refer him, a lot of them have retired. He's about 60. So when I met him, one of the things he told me was that we are very well respected in our space. People know we do quality work. But I say the challenge is that a lot of my peers have, left, retired, and a lot of the people who now make those buying decisions at those organizations, he was targeting more enterprise clients, are no longer people that he know personally anymore. So he found that a challenge. And where we came in would be something like we help him as agency with developing new leads. And some of those elements will not be new to anybody who is in this space. I know you do cold email, cold calling, LinkedIn prospecting, and things like that. But I think what a lot of people don't realize, and because I think I guess a lot of audience will be on LinkedIn. So to them, this sounds like, of course we all know that, these are the things that you do. But what a lot of people don't realize is that I think particularly in the SME space, there are a lot of business owners who are excellent at their craft, but because they do not necessarily come from a sales background, for instance, a lot of these things, they don't actually do that all the time, or they don't even do that at all. And to them, I would not be wrong in saying that just as far as the technology adoption curve is concerned, they are probably somewhere in the late majority or even laggard, to be honest. Like how often do we see a SME business owner? I mean, like what we were saying earlier, CRM technology is like, what, I don't know, 40 years or something. But it's not unusual, like out of 10 SME businesses I meet, 5 don't have any kind of CRM setup at all. Right? So it's not unusual that to them, they are good, they're excellent at what they do, but they not necessarily be great at they could be very good at a meeting, doing a presentation or whatever they are doing, but they're not necessarily, very focused on doing the early part of the pipeline work in terms of lead generation, reaching out, booking meetings and things like that. Like if you work in like for myself, I did a lot of software sales before I came out to my own, right? And if you work at some place like HubSpot, for instance, there's a super laser focus on how many leads you generate, how many meetings you're booking, and things like that. As a software salesperson, you know that intrinsically this is what you kind of focus on. But a lot of business owners are different, right? They have 100 things going on, fighting fires everywhere all the time. This is not necessarily something that they always have their eye on. Like existing client work is always more important. Managing operations always seem more important at the moment. So it turns out that this part is often neglected as well.
No, but it's interesting. Okay, so you talk about, and the experience of you being in software sales in larger organizations such as HubSpot, obviously, train you for that kind of sensitivity and that, laser focus on generating leads, right? Which feels, looking from the outside, right, feels a bit counterintuitive because for example, HubSpot is known for inbound marketing. Right? In fact, they coin inbound marketing. So they are very focused on, getting the leads and that obviously would involve outbound. So I'm just trying to reconcile the two concepts or frameworks. And maybe you can share a bit more about, what sort of structure or what sort of activities that goes into a software company, like HubSpot in terms of generating leads for the business to grow.
Right. So my experience there was for 9 years ago. So I don't want to speak for them today. But I think in general, if you see somebody like a HubSpot, obviously brilliant, gold standard as far as inbound marketing was concerned, right? Create a lot of content, a lot of leads come in the system, but leads don't turn themselves magically into deals and contracts, to put it that way, right? So somebody has to go out there, look at the leads and say, and these leads can be varying qualities. You got people who say, raise their hand and say, I want a demo today. You have people who say, sign up for ebook 3 years ago. Is that really relevant today as far as the lead is concerned? Right? Like you got an email, maybe you got a contact number. Yeah. As far as a salesperson is concerned, there's no different for a cold outbound lead. The guy downloaded an ebook 3 years ago. He may not even remember your company's name, right? So
right.
So from that perspective, I think as a salesperson, and to be honest, this is probably across all software sales, is that portion is always as a good salesperson, you always intrinsically know that I can't rely on the company alone. Inbound leads, people will raise their hand and say, I want a demo today. You know that you have to be looking at, your territory or your patch or whatever you call it, and say that, okay, these are the kind of companies I want to talk to. I need to make sure they're aware of me, and I need to reach out to them, let them know this is who I am, this is what I do, and then see whether they're qualified. Over time, maybe, get into conversation, meetings, and the meeting, frankly speaking, is often the start point of what could be a very long sales process anyway.
Yes.
So, and I think that's where a lot of challenge tends to come in for a lot of SME business owners when they start doing some kind of outbound lead gen work with whether themselves or with others and things like that. They become really focused on meetings, like, or how do we generate a meeting? But the truth is that, especially for a high ticket service kind of thing, right? Offer that meeting often is just the start of a very long sales process. It could be one meeting, it could be multiple meetings over a long time. It could be the meeting and then the guy tells you that, we're not really looking at this right now. It could be meeting turns out well and say, send me a proposal, and they go quiet after that forever, right? And I think part of that is that, people need to realize that, like, and I think that's where outbound lead gen, maybe a lot of people associate that with just booking meetings alone. And I think that's where is probably needs to shift a bit of focus. And I think that's where you mentioned about software sales, is that when we're there, we know that, okay, the meeting is actually a very long sales process. And of course, depending on the nature of your business company, they will structure different stages, right? And you know that, okay, I need to make sure my pipeline has enough opportunities in different stages, not just meeting completed, but, across the whole spectrum of the pipeline itself.
Okay. So, I speaking for myself, I come from two very distinctive spaces. Like, I mean, obviously when we first got to know each other, you know that I'm in marketing services. So I totally understand what you're saying with regards to if today I'm trying to promote my marketing services like SEO, brand consultation and so on, because those are high ticket and you do need to build that trust and warm up, right? But if I look at right now where we are in terms of we are pushing our AeroChat, which is an AI SaaS, right? Then there's always this nagging in us that, are we really going to do one-on-one, which obviously doesn't make sense because, again, because of our price point and because of, the target audience that we're trying to reach. So in that sense, how then can we best adopt or apply, the things that you just mentioned at scale and that which doesn't require us to be so involved directly with meetings and bookings, but at the same time still have enough impact to establish trust and create conversion.
I'm surprised you don't enjoy doing 1,000 demos in a month.
No. I enjoy finding a way to do 1,000 demo at the same time with technology, not by myself. No, but you're in a way you're right. That's why we sort of move away from doing one-on-one discovery call. We quickly realize that one obviously cannot scale. It's good at the start to just understand the customer, but we quickly realize we can't scale. So we have tried working with we have tried doing webinars. So webinars at least help a bit because then you're speaking to a room of 20, 40, 30, 50 audience at the same time. But again, we are always looking at how we can scale it further, how we can push our message further.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I'm not a expert in your in terms of your B2B subscription software. When we had HubSpot, that was a very different business model. But I think one area that potentially could be scaled, and that was how we met, right? Like I was managing partner sales at HubSpot. I think for a lot of B2B software products, particularly those that require some form of implementation, working with the clients to know this is how you can do it. Many of them have some kind of partnership, right? Like you look at HubSpot, they obviously built out what was a very complete partner program in terms of getting agencies. Even I think at that point where we met, you became one of our partners to help clients implement that. So and I think HubSpot is obviously not the only one. Like guys like Xero, like the accounting software, they built a tremendous partner program through accountants, people that business owners would trust basically, right? Like if my accountant recommend that I should use this accounting software, I probably say, yeah, let's go for it. I'm not going to question what you tell me to use. Right? So, and I think so that could be one avenue for scaling is through channels, partnerships. That's obviously what you mentioned, webinars as well. And obviously I think the whole concept of marketing automation in itself was meant to say, how can we scale this without having to be involved in every step of the sales process manually, right? Like a lot of stuff that we see in that part of what we call the marketing automation stuff, like things like creating email workflows, right? Somebody visit the pricing page, we automate send an email to them, maybe with a video, a quick overview of the video of of a quick demo of the the product itself. That could scale quite well. Right, you may not need to be involved in every step of the way. So I don't think and obviously that depends a little bit on the nature of your product, how technical it is, price point and stuff like that. But I think it's probably not easy to remove 100% of the human element in that process. Nor do I think it's necessarily a good idea as well. To be fair, I sign up for many software products. I'm sure you do use a software, but without meeting a single salesperson. And frankly, sometimes talking to salespeople at a software company can be we know, right? It can be challenging. Sometimes you put in a demo request, nobody get back to you for days, right? Things like that. Or they get back to you, they give you very skimpy information. Sometimes it's just easier for if it's a software product, that you can kind of implement easily for yourself. Sometimes I prefer not to talk to anyone. I just, sign up, pay for it, and then get on it. But for certain products, I don't think that's possible. No, I think it's a good idea. So where I think, generally speaking, I think marketing automation works quite well for trying to remove part of that manual process. I think videos works very well these days. Like even for my own work, like I know I work with obviously a lot of clients on. And then sometimes people ask me questions. Okay, how do we use this part of the CRM, for instance? But these days when I try to record a video, I try to make it I wouldn't like specifically make it targeted just for this person who's asking me. I record the video once, and then sometimes I get other clients or people asking me about the same thing. I just take the same video and send to them again. Right. So that kind of thing has scaled quite well, I find. Right. And you build a whole library of videos and you put them in a few marketing automation workflows. That maybe also can help to scale the business in terms of the sales process. That means you don't necessarily need a salesperson in every part of the process itself.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that we have been trying to do. I agree with you, like building out a library. And again, because we are in AI customer service automation, we got to walk the talk, right? Can't be us doing all the manual work and then we're selling and hey, this is an AI customer service automation software. But you brought up something that's interesting. We had thought about it, and I suppose we along the way neglected it. Probably because, which goes back to the exact point that you mentioned just now. Like, I'm in the marketing space, right? And I'm in the tech space. So marketing, automation, I should know this by heart. And yet, going back to what you said just now, a lot of your clients are marketing agencies themselves, which is kind of a weird thing, right? Because as marketing agencies, we should know better to do proper outbound. But the truth is we are always, guilty of not doing it.
It's no surprise, right? I think there's the old Kovler children's story, right? Like and I think that's the and I think there's a good reason to that. The good reason is that because clients are paying you money straight away for delivering work, so you know that okay, I got to focus on doing this. But your own business, you always kind of you don't immediately see the immediate results by working on it, right? So people tend to put it aside and say, okay, it's not urgent. It's true, it's not urgent. It's important, but not urgent. That's the problem. Is the urgent one always important
until it becomes urgent.
Yeah. So it's true, right? Like a lot of my clients, right? I put it this way, but by the time we talk to them, it's probably they recognize it's important and likely to be urgent as well. They're willing to engage in these conversations, right? I mean, there are always some forward-looking, business owners say that, it's not urgent, but I want to start thinking about this and how to do it. But if I have to be honest, that's probably a minority versus a lot who say that, my pipeline is kind of really dry up. Our business was down last year. We need to think about how to generate more leads and stuff like that. That's way more common, to be very frank. Yeah. So no surprise at that all. And I think the other thing also is that and we use the marketing agency, but I think a lot of marketing agencies are obviously very specialized in their craft. That means what they do. And even for myself, I wouldn't know how to build a website, right? I know how to do certain things, but I don't know how to do a lot of things. And I don't think this is very different from a lot of agencies. Some agencies are web development agencies. They are great at building websites. It doesn't really mean that they are good at SEO, good at content marketing, good at outbound lead generation. Like that term marketing agency encompasses so many things in so many kind of disciplines inside, right? Like you'll be very different. It'll be very difficult for anyone to be really good at so many things. But the other flip side of that is I don't think people need to be good at everything. They probably need to be good at one or maybe two and make sure they do that one or two things very consistently all the time. And I'm just as guilty of it as anyone as well. The feast and famine situation. You do a lot of prospecting, you get a lot of leads in the pipeline, you start having projects, and then you stop doing a whole bunch of this good situation, and then 6 months later, your some of the projects have delivered less work, and then you realize, what happened to my pipeline? Why is it looking like I'm just as guilty of it as anyone? But one of the things I've tried to do more now is that I try to stay focused on maybe no more than one or two what I call revenue generating activities for myself, and I just do those two. And so for instance, I do a lot of cold emails and cold calling, with my team for clients, but I don't actually do any of that for myself, for my own business, because I realized what would bring me leads and basic clients. And for myself, then I narrow in on those two activities, and I just kind of do a lot more of those. So for myself, just like a lot of other agency and consultants, maybe half of my leads will come from referrals. So I do a lot more networking, meetings in person. So that's 50% of what I do. Then 50% of my leads come from LinkedIn. So I do a lot more of that. So I don't necessarily, the work that I do for my clients to generate leads for them, I don't necessarily do it for myself, because I kind of realize, okay, I don't need to do 8 different things for myself. I just need to do 2 things and make sure I do the 2 things well, and and that can help a lot really.
Which is interesting. So you mentioned that half of your leads comes from LinkedIn, right? But yeah, you say, oh, you don't do the cold outreach, you don't do the cold call. So those leads that come from LinkedIn are all inbound.
I probably wouldn't say all inbound. Part of them are inbound, part of them are outbound. When I say outbound, so with LinkedIn, there's a lot of different things, right? Like you obviously post content.
Yes.
And sometimes people engage with your content. Sometimes people don't even engage with your content. They don't like, they don't comment. They just maybe view your profile.
Yeah.
So I think one part of that is the inbound part is you create content, people, see the content. The outbound part would be, I would have certain, I suppose you call strategies or tips or ideas. Let's say someone view my profile. I will make sure that, if I see that, okay, that person looks like a prospect I want to talk to, right? Like I made a post, I think a couple of months back. Somebody looked at my profile, and I didn't do anything else. Didn't like, didn't comment, just view my profile. But I saw that the person viewed my profile after seeing the post. So I'll send a message to her and say that, oh, thanks for checking out my profile. Great to connect. We get connected. I drop a message about just usually a very soft pitch about what I do, right? Like not asking for any meeting, not doing any, just a simple kind of 1-2 liner about what I do. And the person express interest or not, and things like that. So that, and then if they are, then we get longer conversations and stuff like that, meetings. But so that part is the outbound, where you don't just passively wait and say that, okay, I post something and I hope people start asking me directly, for like that stuff lah. I mean, if you great at what you do, maybe, but I think for a lot of us, we still have to execute that hard work of trying to do the outreach, even on LinkedIn itself.
Yeah, but I suck at outreach. That's why I was asking. Like, I think for me, I haven't really got the hang of messaging people. I mean, I'm very comfortable in just posting nonsense on LinkedIn, and commenting, and commenting on the public's.
Well, I think that's a good half of already what you need to do is the posting, all right? And then I think the engaging other people's content. Like for me, to be honest, I'm not that great at engaging other people's content. Sometimes I like a few people's posts. I should be doing a lot more of liking people's posts and commenting, making intelligent comments on other people's posts. I don't do enough of that. That's the part where I don't do that well. I'm quite consistent, I would say, over the last maybe 6 months in terms of posting. But I have not been very consistent with the engagement part. Starting to be a lot more consistent on the outreach part in terms of reaching out DMs and stuff like that. So I say, in terms when I say leads coming in to me from LinkedIn, I'll probably say in fact 2/3 are outbound. That means like I don't get that many people just coming and say, hey Nick, can we do a meeting with one? Like I do get that, maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2 a month max. A lot more comes from outbound, to be very frank. Right? But so I don't think there's getting. I mean, if you're a big brand organization, it's very different, right? Like when you're an SME business owner, you just can't be passive about saying that about shy about outreach to people. Like, in fact, I saw a post, I wouldn't name anyone. This was a lady that reached out to me. I think 5 years ago, when she started her coaching business, right? And I've never really stayed in touch. We had one call a long time ago, and she's a super nice lady, but I think she put herself out as an introvert, a bit.
Yeah.
So I think when she sent an outreach message to someone recently, and she mentioned on LinkedIn, then the person kind of shut her down and said that I don't take unsolicited messages. And
I saw that. I commented on that as well.
I'm not sure you did.
Anyway, I know which one you're referring to. Yeah.
So, and in my point of view was this, like, you can't be too affected by things like that. Like, and maybe I think maybe in the sense, because I was like a salesperson for, I don't know what, 13 years before I came out to set up my own business. So I kind of better hardened against, things like comments like that. It doesn't matter to me. This person won't remember me in 2 weeks' time anyway. It doesn't really matter, right? So I'm not shy about, doing outreach or things like that. Like, to me, it's part of doing business. If you want to get business, you just have to you just have no choice. And I get a lot of sometimes I get replies to cold emails that are doing more of that in the past, where you have somebody from a certain organization or say that I never take unsolicited emails or meetings from salespeople, but their organizations their salespeople be doing the same. It's just that he's not the sales guy, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
say that, but ask any of his salespeople, I bet a lot of them do a lot more outbound than he thinks. So after a while, I realized that you just can't be. I'm not too bothered about that part. I think the part that bothers me is you can do a lot. Sometimes you don't get any response. That's a lot harder. Like you feel like sometimes we do a lot outbound. You are kind of climbing uphill sometimes.
Yeah.
I think to me I think that's a lot worse than not getting any, than getting a 1 or 2 nasty response once in a while. Like the fact is when you do a lot of outbound outreach, right? A lot of it just goes into a silent. Nobody ever responds to you. That's more likely than anything else.
No, I do agree with you. Like similarly to you, I mean I saw the same post that you mentioned. I can understand and relate to what she went through, but I think similar to you, we quite thick skin, that kind of thing doesn't stick like that, yeah.
And it's tough, I mean, it's true. It's tough as a small business trying to get business out there for people that you don't know. That's just a reality. So after a while, you just have to kind of get used to it and say that, okay. But that said, I do think that there are tougher ways and there are easier ways to do this, right? Like to be frank, I think LinkedIn has helped a lot in that sense because it allows you to more easily connect with people that who could be a good target prospect for you. But in the past, how will you get in front of them? It's not easy. But like on LinkedIn, the guard is a little bit lower in terms of that. They say that, okay, I connect with you. I start seeing some of your content. You can engage with my posts and stuff like that. To be frank, that makes it a lot easier than just doing cold calling and cold. Like when I was that was probably around 20 before 2014, to put it that way, right? A lot of the work we do was all just cold email and cold calling, and that was so challenging, to be honest, right? Like when I was a salesperson at a company we were selling what we call like practice management software to accounting firms. I remember going to the accounting association, getting a directory and going through the directory and calling the numbers one by one, and then sending cold emails, and you still get responses once in a while, but that was really hard work
that's really hard work.
Yeah, right. So to be frank, LinkedIn has helped a lot in that sense that it allows you to kind of let you put a face to your name. People see a bit of your content. So by the time you try to reach out, sometimes it's a lot easier. Right? People are a bit more open to understanding. They've seen some of your content, especially if you've been posting. Yeah, of course, there are other things that you can do. I think, for instance, one of the things that it's probably easier if you don't pitch immediately. Like, you connect with somebody. You maybe set yourself, you have a cadence that you build out for yourself, saying that, okay, maybe in 2 weeks I send them a link to a post that I wrote. So, less sales pitch, more value, right? That's what everybody wants to provide value. At some point, you have to ask for business, like ask for a meeting, that they put that way. But I don't think you need to start that way straight away. That there are, and then, to be frank, even when you do all these steps, right, there's like 95% of the time you get no response. That's just the reality. And you, after a while, you just realize that it's part of the process.
True. But you see, so it's interesting that it's hard, and you mentioned that it's hard to do the cold calls and the cold outreach and things like that. But at the same time, you're being engaged by your clients, the other marketing agencies, the other SMEs doing cold outreach and cold calls on their behalf, right? And whether you like it or not, you still need to deliver on that front. So, and you just talk about, the part about, delivering value. So can you share a bit more, like, for some of this work that you do, where you are being engaged by your clients to do cold outreach, cold outbound for them, right? Typically, what kind of structure? Is there a strategy to it? Is there a cadence to it? Is there an approach that you kind of always take to ensure that you have the bet, you have more success or more the conversion from that process? But again, I think that's the problem with a lot of people, right? Even though you can say, oh, I'm not thick-skinned, or rather, I am thick-skinned, I'm not worried about rejection, I can just keep calling. But if you call 1,000 people in a non-effective way, you're going to get 1,000 rejections regardless. I mean, whether you're thick-skinned or not, you're still not going to get a result. So that was what I was interested to know, which is, like, when you, and obviously as a provider, if you're being engaged by a client to help with outbound outreach, right? No matter how tedious, right? While we understand that it is tedious, you still need to deliver results, right? So I think what I'm also interested to understand is there some form of approach or certain structure where you organize the outbound, the outreach, and to sort of increase the chances of conversion?
Yes. And one of the couple of things there, one of which I think tends to help a little bit here. I wouldn't dare to say dramatically, but it does help a bit, is that when you kind of do that in parallel, that means like you're running cold email campaigns and you're doing cold calling, it's helpful to do it in parallel, because you kind of have a better chance to get in front of the prospect, through email or through the phone. Because the reality is this: a lot of prospects might see the email, but they just ignore it. They don't do anything. But when you actually get them on the phone, they have some it resonates a little bit with them in terms of, okay, I think I heard if you guys have emailed me or something like that before. So I think it does help a bit here doing that. The other thing that when I get my team to do the cold calling, one of the things we try not to do is not to be too aggressive about trying to set up a meeting. Because the truth is most clients tell me that, oh, we want to set up a meeting. That's what we care about. Yeah, we understand. But for most prospects, and you think about it, if from your point of view as a business owner, somebody you never talked to before call you don't know the company they're talking about. You never thought about this thing until like 2 seconds ago when the person reached out to you. Why the hell would I take a meeting from you? Like we think, yeah, that's why I think most cold calls don't go anywhere, right? That's just a reality. But the truth is that you've done some level of qualifying, targeting beforehand. There's a reasonable chance the person you talk to might be interested in this at some further point in time. Not today, not now, not when I'm busy driving and trying to call me, but maybe at some point. And so what we try to do is we try to be too aggressive about trying to set up meetings straight away. It's more about maybe just usually have no more than one, not even two. I would just say one question just to find out very quickly, is whatever we're trying to solve, the client is trying to solve, is that a challenge that they may sometimes find themselves with? And if they answer that yes, that is really very good. And then what we try to do is that we would try to say that, and usually we will get our clients to create some collateral, maybe a case study of some sort. Typically that works better. Case study, referencing certain issues or challenges that they solve. Then we would, on the cold call, my team would tell the prospect that, oh, can we email you this information? And you think from the prospect's perspective, usually they are kind of somewhat keen to get you off the phone. They're busy. They'll probably say, yeah, send me the information. And I think that's where a lot of people tend to think that that's just a brush off, that, that means this cold call gone nowhere already. But I think the reality is somewhat a bit different, is that if you have done some targeting and beforehand, so this group of people you're calling, somewhat as a right group, not sure whether they're in the market, but they answer your questions in terms of maybe there's a challenge that they may sometimes face. They are saying that if giving you permission to send them some information, I think that's the way to think about it. This is the start of a very long sales cycle with somebody. It might potentially close down very far down the road, but this is a starting point. And I think where and the truth is that if you're a business owner, you're doing this yourself, very often you say that, okay, forget it, this person not interested, and you end it there. But I think the better way to think about it is that this could be the start of a very long sales cycle, but you need a starting point. And the starting point is this person is now somewhat aware of you. If you follow up quickly in terms of sending out the information, and then you have some planned follow-ups in terms of maybe more phone calls, other emails, that would help a lot in moving that process along. The other thing that's quite helpful these days as well is that what we tend to do is we get our client to send a LinkedIn connection invite to that person straight after our call. And if the person says, yeah, send me some information, because when the information comes from us, that's one thing, right? But they get the email, but they may not be very sure who you are. So when I get a client to send them a connection invite, it's kind of put a name to the face, and they may say that, oh, one of my teams spoke to you recently, you probably received an email, some follow-up information. I just want to put a name to a face. No pitch there. And then that helps, because sometimes they do accept a connection invite. They do see what my client posts on LinkedIn. They suddenly feel that, hey, this person seems to be more of an authority in what he's talking about than when I got a cold call from his VDR. Right? So then that, and all those things help, I think. And I think where the gap tends to be is a lot of people just assume, not automatically, because this guy did not jump into a meeting straight away with the moment I cold call him before, because he never heard of me before, this means this love deal is opportunity is lost. It's not. I think the idea here is that you need to have a couple of stages, even in this part of the sales process, this early stage, the of the sales process and recognize that that's how a lot of meetings are going to be set up. People who answer a cold call, willing to accept some information, multiple follow-ups before a meeting is booked. And after the meeting is booked and the call takes place, that's still a starting point of an even longer sales cycle, potentially. Yeah. And I think people sometimes get disheartened because, people just don't immediately say, I want to do a 1 hour Zoom meeting with you next week. And it will never happen. So that's just the reality of sales process. Like, I think which why I feel sometimes that because of my own background as a salesperson and then later doing many years of software sales, kind of make me realize that this is how this is going to be. If you think that you cold call somebody, one person, and the person is immediately going to say, yeah, let's jump on a Zoom call next week, 1 hour. Well, sorry, that's not going to happen. You probably end up calling 100 people. 10 people allow you to say, yeah, send me some information. 80% of them is going to say, not interested, hang up the phone straight away. The 20 people will say, yeah, send me some information. And then you send that, you follow up a couple of times more. 3 of them maybe will take a meeting. Likely, maybe one at some point in time, one of them will close in the next 6 months. The other one, maybe 3 years out, maybe if you still follow up with them because you got a proper CRM tracking, maybe there's an opportunity there. So I think people just have to realize that this is how a lot of, and this is obviously different if you're selling a different kind of product, pricing matters, kind of product matters. But if you are selling some kind of higher value B2B service, this is a lot of it is going to be. A lot of rejection, long sales cycle, a lot of people who say no now, potentially maybe in the market in a couple of years, months time. Like I remember when I left HubSpot, obviously I got some referrals from some agency partners that I know well. And one of them, I had a couple of meetings with them the year I left. They introduced me some people. I also had talked with their own team about helping them. We probably had 4 or 5 meetings in the first 2 years I left HubSpot. Nothing happened at all. I was there to say I stayed with them in contact regularly, but we did meet up maybe another 2-3 times over the next 7-8 years. Last year, which was the 8th year since I left HubSpot, I actually finally got an engagement with them. Like 8 years after I left, and I started talking to them about maybe potentially doing some work for their agency. And I think if you have been doing any kind of any service work for 5-10 years, you likely have a lot of people that you met before and that you send proposals to. People who say, yeah, maybe one day we can talk. But if you never follow any of these people, then that's never going to happen. This is a reality of how both the sales process and how outbound works. So, but I think, like I said, those few things that you can do, doing cold email, cold calling in parallel, sending LinkedIn invites after a cold call, all helps a little bit. But there's no magic bullet. That's just the truth. And I mean, there are a lot of tools out there in the market. A lot of people that you look around, there are tools that help you with personalizing your eco emails, social listening signals. Is that company hiring more salespeople? Is that person just joined in the last 6 months and things like that? So all those things helps a bit. I would say it does help, but it helps to get you to the first meeting. But the first meeting is just such a long way off from closing a deal, right? Like it's still a lot of sales process.
Funny that you say that. I'm gonna be burned for this, but I actually don't believe in any of those personalization. Like a lot of tools these days, and not just these days, of course, with all the AI right now, they can, personalize the outreach. So when you send a message, you send a WhatsApp, you send a LinkedIn comment, right? They will look at what are your engagement and look at, what are some of your interests, and they try to personalize the notes as if they know you, right? It's supposed to work, right? My take is, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in personalization working in the way that it is advertised. Because for the simple reason of what has my interest got to do with my needs? So like just because, we go to the same school together doesn't mean that I need whatever you're selling, so that kind of, fake buddy actually really puts me off. And I do receive some of those cold emails from people trying to sell me something, right? And they will say, oh, I noticed that you like Alex Hamosi, you follow this and there, and then they try to make a connection.
Yeah.
But I'm like, dude, but I'm not interested in what you're selling. So what's that connection for?
I probably agree with you on that. I think that kind of, I suppose you call it fake personalization,
yeah,
doesn't really appeal to most people. I think the reality is most people don't care about those things. Like nobody cares any. Like how about 1/3 of Singapore probably went to the same university as me. I don't went to the same university. Right? No, nothing know about each other. But I think where I've seen it work well is probably relevance more than personalization, where you are able to connect via, say, something that is kind of relevant to their business situation, not their personal situation. So like, I think those could work a little bit, tends to work a bit better. And obviously, I think things that can work well, things like, for instance, I think one thing that I've seen that work a bit better, when you, like, if you use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, obviously you can see when they have joined the organization, things like that, right? Like people who are in a more senior position have joined the organization, like I think maybe after the first 3 months, they'll be able to say first month is good, some years third month is good, some the 7th month is good, whichever lah. I mean, the point here is that if you at least do that, I think that helps a bit, because things like that I think matters, because it's relevant. Like if you come into a new company, at some point you want to do some new initiative. If you are in the marketing and sales space, that's a good time to reach out to this kind of prospects. So I think that kind of relevance to people who are in a certain situation can be helpful. I agree with you about personalization. Like, I don't care if you're an Arsenal fan like me, doesn't matter to me at all. Like,
yeah. But what you say about it is more, I would say the example that you gave is less of a personalization, is more of targeting, is the timing of the targeting. Then yes, I agree. Like, and again, going back to what you say about sales can be a long cycle, right? And I think at the end of it, marketing and sales, we are just trying to put whatever we want to put out there, right, on an ongoing basis, and hopefully catching someone who needs it at the right time. That's all there is to it, right? It's because if that person doesn't need what we are selling, no matter how good you are, like, don't have that need means don't have that need. I don't know how to, force it. I put a gun to his head or what, right?
Right. I think there's a very famous stat out there. You just Google for you find it, where they talks about like B2B buyers, how many percent are in the market. I think the magic number at this point in time, the experts tells me is 3%. Right. So you use that as a benchmark. Well, 97 of people you talk to out of 100 are not going to be in the market right now. But I think the flip side to remember is these people are not in the market. It doesn't mean that they are forever not in the market. They're just not in the market right now. Right. So I think that's really really important for you do any kind of sales development work, business development work, is that the people who tell you they're not interested, what they're saying is we are not interested now. It's not we are not interested forever. And I think that nuance makes a world of difference, because it means that the 3 people that who are interested in the market right now, yes, keep talking to them now. The other 97 who tell you they are not interested now, yeah, sure, but maybe 1 year later, out of the 97, another 10 of them might be more in the market situation. So I think it's important to start conversations, and then obviously there's going to be a spectrum of great conversations. You immediately try to progress. Middle of the road, not really interested right now, but yeah, sure, send me some information. And then to others that never call me again in my lifetime type of situation, right? Then so you have to use some discretion. You can't say that I will follow up everybody. That just doesn't make sense. So you use some discretion, understand that there's a middle part of those people that there's a lot of them, then intensely there's a lot more of them, like that is worth following up. But you just don't know when they're going to be in the market. But if you don't follow up, you never know, you never find out when they're in the market, right? Because the reality is a lot of times, by the time they're in the market, let's say they are a bigger company, you put an RFP, a tender, by the time you go and put in too late already, right? To be talking to them way before that already, and understand that you need to be constantly putting yourself on their radar. Say, by the time you want to think about maybe implementing something like that, you should
after the person, right? Yeah.
You think about this person who has been sending an email every quarter, over the last 3 years, right? Then you got a better chance to say, like, none of this is a sure win tactic or strategy. It's just like giving yourself a better opportunity to like what you say, you just need to put yourself out there so people know about what you do, and the time is right, you have better chance of closing those deals. And that's the perfect scenario. Like, and the truth is that many businesses don't even do any of it at all. That's the truth. Like, it's fine, I think, if you're not doing 100%, you're not following up all your leads every month, every quarter, that's fine. But you need to start somewhere, do some stuff, you see some results, you probably do a bit more. And I think I've never, even for people like us, like we are doing this as a service for others, we don't do this perfectly for ourselves. That's the honest truth. Right?
Yeah.
But you need to start somewhere, do a little bit, hopefully get some results, get encouraged to do more of that as well. Like I remember, I think in the first few years when I left, I posted some stuff on LinkedIn. I also didn't get much response, nothing at all. Then I also stopped posting for a very long time, for years in fact, right? But then by the time I started posting it and got some results, I think myself, if only I have never stopped those years ago, that would have been great. By now, I'll be generating tons of leads.
Yeah, I mean, hindsight is always like that, isn't it? Like right now, we are starting this podcast. We are doing okay. At least on our end for AeroChat, for what we are doing right now, we are doing a lot of very above the line form of brand awareness. Like we're doing podcasts. I'm doing all sorts of content on LinkedIn. We're also running some advertising, right? And we are getting more people to know us. They, like you said, they may not buy immediately. They may not even be our target audience. But, they remember that there's this pink shirt guy that keeps showing up, whether in events or, online. And then that starts to generate some form of brand recall, which is good for us. So that's at least something that we're able to. But like you said, we could have done this like 1 year or even 2 years before we launched the product and built up a following. It would have been a lot easier for our user acquisition. But hindsight is always 2020.
And I got a funny story now that you mentioned that, because I mentioned before our recording started that I met somebody early in the morning. So that guy was at the event that you went with me as well. I told him that I was meeting you. I was coming on your podcast. He doesn't remember your name. I said, it's the guy who wore the pink color. Oh, I know that guy you're talking about. Obviously.
No, but thanks for that. But and the truth is, a lot of people are telling me that they can't miss it, which is good. I mean, so which I suppose brings me to probably, and a lot of people actually ask, why this color? We purposely chose this color for a reason. Because one of the things that we did earlier was to be in a lot of events and networking.
Yep.
And I may not sound like it, I may not behave like it, but I'm an introvert. I don't really like to be the first one to talk to people. Okay, and after I talk to an X number of people, my energy goes down. I'll start going quiet. Right, so I only have certain amount of energy at given point of time, and I'm usually not the type that would just purposely go and say hi to people. But like you said, as a business owner, we need to talk to people. We need to network. We need to find customers. We need to get sales, right? Yeah. So my approach is I find an excuse for people to come and talk to me.
I think it's a brilliant idea.
This is an excuse. Like, people literally come in and say, I noticed your pink shirt right across the room, and that's why I want to come and talk to you. There you go. Like, okay, sure. Let's eat, please.
Brilliantly for brand recognition. Even if you don't have a they remember the color at least. Good idea.
Hey, but going back to so just now you were talking about that thing with the companies not having to put in the work on the outreach and the outbound. But that got me thinking before we digress, right? That got me thinking, right now when you're looking at the work that you're doing with your customers and all the conversations that you have with all these clients or people in the network, where do you see is the bigger challenge? The bigger challenge is they don't really know if they are talking to the right people at the right time, or they don't have a process of engaging them on an ongoing basis. Like, so to do it more precise, like just when we talk about some studies have shown that only 3% of all B2B buyers are in the market at a given point in time, right? Yep. So that then goes back to, is there a process or is there a way to filter out more the right kind of people? Because you don't want to waste time talking or going into meetings, right, where the person clearly has no interest in buying at that moment, right? It could be just wasted calls. It could be just wasted meetings.
Is there a magic way to filter them out? I think sadly the truth is no, other than talking to them. I think that is a good way to think about things. But I think when you can't really apply that to any single prospect meeting. Like, of course, in general, it like before you like when we do the work for clients, we will ask some questions to try to make sure that this is somebody that, there's a good fit for our client to talk to, or even for myself. Let's say if I'm doing this work for myself. But is it really possible to, to figure out for sure? I mean, there's so many of this, you use band like budget, authority, need, timeline, whatever not, right? But the truth is that there's very little way, I think, at early stage of the process to necessarily say that, okay, this is not going to be a fruitful discussion for me. I think it's also you see a lot of these days, there are a lot of these tools out there that says they do like they use some kind of social signals to kind of get a better sense of whether this is a good prospect. And I think those are useful to a point. But I think the truth is that if you've done any form of, and I'm sure you've done tons of this discovery calls with prospects, you realize that a lot of information, right, that they shared during the discovery call, a lot of information you can find in any public space. That's just the truth. Right? They're not still not going to be out there for you to easily pick up through some kind of signal.
Yeah.
Right. And those information will probably then, kind of fit into whether you feel like this is a good prospect to talk to down the road or not. Right? So is there an easy way to do this? No, I don't think there is, to be very frank. I think the reality is that the first part of it, by doing the targeting, like things I say, like the profiling in terms of maybe company size, industry, job title, that helps to the extent it can help. Beyond that, you just need to be having conversations with these people and realize a lot of these conversations, some of them will lead to immediate conversations where they are a really good prospect, good sales opportunity. Many of them are just going to be some kind of nurture leads in your system where you just need to be following on them on a more consistent basis. And I think the truth is that once you've done enough years of sales, so you realize that a lot of these people that you talk to today, sometimes they're in the market, sometimes they're not. The one not in the market today, sometimes they move companies. And then when they move companies, suddenly they're in the market because they talked to you before, and then they're now a different company where their situation is completely different. Like, how will you even know? You never know.
So true.
So there's so many variables to this that I find that I try not to overthink about these things. We know that, okay, we need to do some profiling before we reach out to anyone. All right, based on those things I mentioned, company size, industry, and a bunch of, and like you go to Apollo Sales Navigator, there's a bunch of things you can do there, profiling really. Once you have that ready, you cannot overthink it and say that I want to find a magic prospect. The only guy that is in the market right now, I want to talk to him and then he will go lead to a deal, right? Like, it's no way. You just need to be talking to the 100 people and then decide what is your strategy for dealing with the 100 people. Like the 20 people who are obviously bad fit, never follow up them again. 70 who are potentially a good fit, not in market right now, some kind of structured cadence process about following up. And that part, you can have different strategies. Maybe it can be email, it can be LinkedIn, it can be cold calling over different time periods. So you have some strategy about doing that. The 10 who are really good prospects, I need to talk to them straight away, book meetings and stuff like that. So you can have strategies around that. But I think there's no strategy to say that, let's talk to the 3 guys who are in the market only and forget about talking to the other 7. Sadly, the magic bullet yet.
Okay, so, but, these days, do people still, you talk about cold calling, again, it could be my bias, but do people still respond well to cold calling these days? Especially like you talk about you're calling on behalf of your clients, right? So it could be an unknown number or it could be a number that is alien to the prospect. And these days there are so many, scam calls and whatever. I personally almost never take calls these days. Like if you're not sending me an email, if you're not dropping me a WhatsApp, I'm never gonna know you because I'm never gonna take a call that I don't know. So how do you bridge that?
So I think there are a few things there. And I think the first most important thing is that we cannot take our own personal experience and say that, we will never, because we don't do that, nobody else will. I think that's the first thing to realize. The second thing is, ironically, it's quite strange. I think I honestly cannot remember the first time I sent my first cold email. But that will be probably around 2012 or something. But then I think when I was working at that company, I told you, the practice management company, I sent a cold email to the MD of one of the bigger accounting firms in Singapore. So outside of the big four, there are a whole bunch of bigger ones.
Yes.
This was one of the really big ones. And I sent a cold email that was like a 2-liner. I got a meeting, we done a whole bunch of meetings. I brought my CEO there, blah, blah, blah. We closed the biggest deal for us that year through that one cold email. But strangely enough, and then when I came out and do on my own, we get these good responses to cold emails. But I think the reality is that cold email has actually gone down somewhat in effectiveness if you talk to most people over time, because people get a lot of that. And I think cold calling actually kind of somewhat gone a slightly reverse trajectory, because at one point in time, it was really hard. Like I mentioned, those years where I got more effective at doing cold emails, because cold calling was really hard. But I think what I found over time is that forgetting about the B2C kind of telemarketing calls, putting those aside, it's actually, you get a lot lesser B2B cold calls these days compared to maybe a certain time period, like maybe 10 years ago. Because a lot of people feel that it's not as effective, and because a lot easier to send cold emails, a lot easier to send a LinkedIn message. So people tend to kind of go towards, because who likes doing cold calling? Like everybody hates it. Yeah. So ironically, so if you ask me, just based on my experience for clients where we do, I actually would say that I probably see that we actually get better results from when we do both the cold email and cold calling in parallel. And maybe because of that makes the results a little bit different, hard to evaluate. But we actually probably just from raw booking of appointments, we actually probably book more through cold calling than through the cold email in itself. So from just that single data point, which is obviously not necessarily very representative, I probably say that, I think actually cold calling can be quite effective. The problem is that it's actually very hard to do. Like, I don't want to do it myself, I tell you very honestly, which is why I have people like to do it, right, for clients. I don't want to do it for myself. I definitely don't want to burn the cold calls. That's just the truth, right? But the last time I did that was when I was a salesperson in some software company, but I no longer ever want to do that in my life, because I think it's actually really tough, right? So, and I bet a lot of people don't want to do it as well.
No, but that's why
it actually helps a little bit when you actually do it.
Yeah, but that's why these days, there's a lot of AI calling agents, AI SDR. The AI is supposed to call you. You can do 6,000 calls a day. Have you tried any of those? I haven't, but have you tried, do they work?
I pulled some of it. I've seen some a very light demo of it before. I honestly have no idea how effective those are. At some point, they probably at some point they'll be a bit more effective than what they are now. So, which is why I think, like what I mentioned, I think these days, I can't speak for all the spaces, but in the space that I operate in, which is more B2B, high value kind of services, I find that LinkedIn is becoming a more critical part of that for this kind of outreach, simply because of what you say, you're just going to have more of everything, more cold calling from this, more cold emails from this, from all these AI tools, and people just get so overwhelmed. Yeah, so I find that that's which is why I mentioned earlier, like I do this cold calling, cold email for clients. But for myself, I see that what I do on LinkedIn probably has and I think there's a part of it, which is that on LinkedIn, you are able to build on whatever you've done earlier a little bit more. Like, you build a network out, you post previous content, people can look at it. Whereas cold calling and cold email tends to be one off. Like, if you talk to this guy and then 6 months later, he probably never helped you. He really see copy from his memory, right? Whereas on LinkedIn, whatever you done earlier kind of help you to build out a little bit more. So I find that that's quite important, which is why I tell all my B2B clients, right? So that we need you to do something. Like a lot of them either have a profile they never touched in years, or some of them, like one I mentioned to you, has zero profile at this point in time. So we tell them, okay, we need to start doing some stuff here. We need to kind of do up your profile, get you start posting some content, add some new connections on a regular basis. So that part I think would become more. It's really super important right now today, but I think it would probably get more important in times to come. And obviously, LinkedIn is doing a lot of other stuff, right? They kind of clamp down on other tools that they're scraping their data. So they want to keep you in the ecosystem, understandably, and that will also make that environment more important for people who is doing outreach. Like, you probably have to end up sending more DMs in LinkedIn just to try to get a meeting and things like that. Send more connection invite, do more content. So I think over the next couple of years, that will become like such a core part. Like I think if you are a SME business owner who's doing some kind of B2B service, high value service, you just can't afford not to be on LinkedIn and not doing any form of marketing on it anymore.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And I suppose, you and I, we are doing it, and a lot of our friends and business connections are doing it. And in fact, these days they are getting way too many more so-called LinkedIn marketing guru, LinkedIn experts telling you how to optimize. I mean, it's the sign of the times, because it's, like you said, it's becoming a more important platform for marketing, for founder-led branding. And then you have all these people championing it and, trying to do all that stuff, which is fine. But you're right. I do feel that, and because like I said earlier, right, in LinkedIn, you put a face to it. And then at least you're talking to a real human. And I think because everybody knows that, you're communicating real, everybody tends to be, behave better, for lack of a better word. there are still some that are really a-holes, but most people behave better. So you don't get really those kind of very spammy ones. Yeah. I wanted to go back to something that you said earlier, which kind of intrigues me. I was just talking to you about some of the challenges we face, right? Like as a SaaS, and we have low price point. For us, it really isn't a scalable or effective way to just do one-on-one, right? We have to do one-to-many. But you talk about you also talk about your experience in HubSpot where there's a lot of focus on partnership, right? So based on what you have gone through, what kind of, so let's say if as a software company, a SaaS company, we're trying to grow our market, and besides going after direct acquisition, we're also trying to do partner growth, right? Typically, what kind of things a potential partner would look for to partner with a software platform? Like, for example, you have been using ActiveCampaign, and that's why, we met up at the event, right? So clearly you felt comfortable partnering with ActiveCampaign, you're using them and things like that. So from your perspective, as a partner to some of this software, typically what would make you want to, continue using or more importantly, want to root for a particular software and maybe to actually promote it as well as part of the partner ecosystem?
Obviously, I think there are so many variables to that itself. I think from my own perspective, obviously, I think one of the things the most important that matters to me, first of all, is this software going to be part of whatever, because as a service provider myself, right, is this software going to fit the services I'm going to deliver? Like, in my case, I would never want to partner with a software that that's not going to be part of my service delivery, right? Like, I don't know, let's say you have some kind of content management system, like let's say I'm not doing that, right? Like even if you pay me like, I don't know, like 99% commission, I have no interest, but I have no idea how to sell that, right? So
yeah.
So that, first of all, I think that software has to be part of my own operations, my own service delivery, part of what I'm going to do for my client. So that I think is the starting point, first of all. And now, of course, there are also other elements there where the quality of the software, their brand reputation. I think the thing that matters a lot lesser for most service providers when partnering up is the level of commissions in itself. Like obviously, from a software company perspective, that's an important thing, right? They think very hard about this level of software commissions. From my perspective, it's important. It's not like it's unimportant. But the reality is, for very few of us, that unless you're a reseller in the sense that you're just reselling this all the time, that usually is not the biggest factor in itself, right? I think the other big thing that matters a lot to service providers or partners, but very few not many software companies do that very well, is will you be able to generate leads for them as a software company as well? So like if I'm a partner and you tell me that, okay, this is going to be part of your service delivery for your clients, and then I'm generating leads as a software company and I'm going to pass you some of that matters a big deal, I think, from a partner perspective. But obviously the challenge is that for the software companies that are bigger, more well-known, people who want to partner with them, they drive less leads, right? Because they got a lot more partners and things like that. They will often have in-house team selling direct as well. So those things would matter a lot. And I think obviously from the one key part would be that from a software company's perspective is that, am I going to be a reasonable amount of your revenue? like I put this way, if you are a huge service provider and that software is going to be like, I don't know, 2% of my revenue, you're not going to be very important to me. I'm not going to be talking about clients about you, right? But mention active campaign. So I do that for almost all the clients I implement CRM with, right? So it's a big deal to me because, it's a big part of my service delivery. Obviously at some point it becomes a bigger part of my revenue as well, that, because, I do a lot. I recommend it basically to every client that I work with. Right? So those things matter. I think the challenge with a lot of times is that from a software company is that they choose the biggest partner they can find, because this partner is so big, they can be, like, relatively, if you're a very small fish in their pool of revenue, then we're not going to get very far, right? Like, where is the interest of the partner or the sales team to push your product, basically? Yeah, with it. And of course, I try not to have too many software that I use, because I also recognize that it's important to build a relationship and not making it so transactional, where I sometimes get this question because me obviously coming from HubSpot and then choosing to partner with somebody else. Sometimes I get even HubSpot, like, why do you not want to ask? I get that the fair bit, like, and the truth is that I have a good working relationship with some of the folks at Active Campaign, and it's built a bit of a relationship over the years. And I don't want to be, and I put it this way, a lot of this software it can deliver maybe 60, 70, 80% of similar functionality. And I find that having a good relationship is sometimes more useful as a partner than saying that I want to maximize every dollar of commissions, or making sure I must choose absolutely the gold standard product in every software that I use, right? So I think that having that relationship is important, because when you are providing a service to a client, then the software, sometimes no software is going to be working fine all the time. Right? You want to be able to have people that you can talk to help you and things like that. So I think those matters quite a lot from partners' perspective as well.
Yeah, which I suppose circles back to what you were just talking about much earlier, at the start of the session, right, where you were talking about, sometimes it's just hard to get in touch with people behind the software, right? To the point that, screw it, I don't want to talk to you guys. But yeah, I mean, in that sense, I think you put a very good cap to what we have discussed today, which is ultimately we will talk about the outbound, the lead gen, the CRM. At the end of the day, really is just building a relationship, because without relationship, like most people are selling similar services anyway. Most people are providing similar products. What's the difference, between choosing A or versus choosing B? It boils down to the relationship, boils down to the connection that we have. Right, and with that, thank you, Nick, for your time.
It's great to be a chat all this about you.
Oh, awesome. And again, I realize with every guest, right, it always feels that once we get in the vibe of things, we never have enough time to talk, right? So but we do want to make sure that we keep it contained. So thank you for your time this round, but well, there's season 2 to look forward to, so you welcome back for season 2 and we'll talk more. All right, cool, take care. Thanks.
You take care too. Thanks so much.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Hey guys, if you enjoy this podcast, subscribe and share it with your friends. We drop new episodes every week, so stay tuned. See you in the next one.